This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 309.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. I think I've said this statement way too many times, but I'm going to say it again because it's true. We go to university, a lot of us, and we don't know what we're doing. I studied communications engineering. I didn't even know what that was. I knew it was related to computer engineering. I didn't know what that was. It was related to computers. But what is it exactly? We don't know. And many of us do that. Many of us go and study whatever. And then we go out and try to find a job where we don't know what is that job. And then we live our lives. So sometimes we're lucky. We get a job that we enjoy. We find a career that we like. And sometimes we're not. We find a job and we think we're supposed to love it and we don't. And then we don't know what to do. So talking to Samir today, our guest, Samir Kausar, he talks about exactly that. Being in a job that he was bored at and what he did to overcome that. And that's one of the many topics that we cover today. So our guest, Samir Kausar, is the newest SE at Home Run Pre-Sales. We talk about his career, how he got into pre-sales, and also we talk about his experience going in startups and how it works at startups mainly. So that's it. Let's jump into the show and hear what Samir has to say. Mr. Kausar, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here, Ramsey. Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. So I already told you this, but I'm telling the folks listening that I'm in a hotel room in a miniature chair, it sounds like, or it looks like. And if you hear anybody talking, that's my wife trying to corral the kids to get out of the room, which we have not been successful so far. But yeah, I'm happy to have you on, and we have some mutual friends in common. But for those who don't know you, Samir, can you share who you are, what you do, and how you came to be on this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Samir Kausar. I am currently a senior solutions consultant for a company called Home Run Pre-Sales. I actually started my career off as a software engineer, studied computer science, and did a minor in business. In undergrad, always hoping to be in between business and technology. And as a 21-year-old fresh grad, I thought the way to do that was to go and build ERP software. And I went over to Workday on their financial management solution, realized that the development life wasn't for me, talked to some folks and explained what I liked about development, what I didn't. Outside of work, I was professionally dancing, hosting events, emceeing, doing a little bit of DJ work, and I really liked being on stage. And when I expressed that to one of my mentors, he mentioned sales engineering and pre-sales, and that's how I learned about pre-sales. Fast forward a year, I landed my first pre-sales role at a company called Automation Anywhere. And from there, I've just gone from a large startup, about 1,000 people, then went down to a Series B, a couple Series B startups, and now at Home Run Pre-Sales. And how I came on this pod was I saw one of my friends and colleagues, Ryan Kruger, actually had a conversation with Ramsey a couple weeks back, and I spoke with him, and I was like, "How'd you do it?" He's like, "I just spoke to Ramsey." I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna cold DM Ramsey and see what's up," and now we're here.
Because your messages sounded similar. Like the question was, what's your process of picking people to be on the podcast? And generally speaking, it's like someone who messages me or I message and someone who has something interesting to share, which we kind of decided that, yeah, you do have a lot of interesting things to share. As a matter of fact, I didn't have the time to take all the notes that I wanted to take already based on the 2 minutes you just spoke. So let's go back. You said you wanted you went into development and found out it's not for you. What was the feeling that you got? Why did you think it wasn't for you?
The easiest way to put it was I was just bored in my day-to-day. I remember writing code, kicking it off to compile, running it through all the unit tests and the system tests that we have. And this was back when we were in the office, and around the corner from my desk was a pool table. And so all the time that these tests were running, I was playing pool. And got really good at pool because I spent a decent portion of my day doing that while I was developing, and I wasn't like inspired to go to work. It was kind of, I was going to work, running through the motions, and I was like, there has to be something more. I'm spending so much time here. I want to do something that excites me. And staring in front of a computer all day just wasn't for me. I needed that human interaction, or more of it,
Yeah.
actually.
I remember I did my internship at Nortel as a software developer, and my beginning, like the first few months, it was a 16-month internship. The first few months was me doing sanity testing, which anyone who's ever done sanity knows that you don't stay sane doing sanity testing. And then I had to beg for development work, and it was so boring, especially for juniors, because I found that I'm not coding anything. I'm just copying somebody else's code, modifying it,
Mhm.
and submitting it. Was that similar to your experience?
Pretty much, because at first you have to learn the code base. At Workday in particular, it was its own programming language that was specific to Workday. So I was learning a new programming language to build out the application. And then a lot of the work that I was given was not as exciting just because I was more junior, getting up to speed, and hadn't earned the trust for that bigger type of work. And I also didn't fully understand the value of the uh, application that I was building because I was so far removed from the customer that I didn't see the impact of my work, and that was really hard for me to connect that dot.
Interesting. Okay. All right. And you mentioned something as well that you really enjoyed dancing, and somehow dancing led to pre-sales. Can you explain? Because I don't see how they connect. So please let me know. Explain to me how dancing leads to pre-sales.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of overlap between the things I learned in dancing and the things that I've learned in pre-sales. So I was, still am a little bit a professional dancer. I do something called Bhangra, which is a Punjabi folk dance performed at Warrior Game halftime shows, Kings games, weddings, corporate events. I'd converted my parents' garage into a dance studio and was teaching kids and adults and hosting events through all of this. And that really, uh, I really enjoyed it because of the performance aspect. And when I expressed this to one of my mentors, that's when he connected the dots for me, saying, pre-sales is there's a lot of performative work in the sense of we're getting on calls, we're doing demos, we're structuring our routine, so to speak. If you think about a demo, it's almost like a routine. I'm going through these different phases in order to invoke this type of emotion in my customer, in my prospect that I'm talking to. And in dance, when you're doing choreography, only you as a dancer know what that choreography is supposed to be. The audience doesn't know what you're going to perform. Whether you mess up or not, the audience will still make a reaction. They only know if you mess up if you show it on your face. And same way, if you're going through a demo, I'm doing something that doesn't run as expected. The only way my prospect's going to know that I messed up is if I tell them or if I show them on my face. And so a lot of that aspect from dancing and performing was really tangential to what I was actually doing in pre-sales and leveraging that staying calm. If you mess up, nobody needs to know unless you tell them. And I think that was one of the big lessons that we always try to teach new dancers who are performing on stage. That's what I try to teach any new SCs that I work with.
That's so interesting because what I thought when I where I thought you were going was the entrepreneurial part of it. It's like, hey, converting a garage into a studio. How did you get clients initially?
It was, I had performed at a local event in Cupertino, and people had come up to me asking if I did classes or not. And originally, I started renting out studio space and started small, and then it was mainly word of mouth of there was like Bollywood classes, but that was mainly towards uh, like middle school girls, and there was a lot of like middle school boys who were interested in dance and hadn't seen another male South Asian person dancing. And so when they saw them, they went to their parents, and their parents came to me. And then that kind of started to spread. And I started with the kids' classes, and then some of the kids' parents had some friends, and it just slowly started spreading like that, word of mouth. mainly.
Well, it sounds like you did a webinar, right? That performance that you did was kind of a webinar, telling people like, "Hey, this is my product," and then, okay, that's really interesting. That's where I thought you were going with the dancing and the sales engineering, the entrepreneurial spirit, but the choreography too. That's pretty interesting. And so you did a bunch of jobs as an SE after that.
Hmm.
Right now you're with Home Run Pre-Sales. Uh, First, what, okay, let me get back. From when you decided you wanted to become an SE, when was that, and how long did it take you to actually become one?
Let's see. I found out about sales engineering in the fall of 2018. It was due to one of the the head of business development for Workday's Financial came and gave a talk to our dev team about what the impact of our work was. And then I just reached out to him afterwards saying, can we have a conversation? And he was the one who told me about pre-sales. He introduced me to the pre-sales managers at Workday, and I was in the process of trying to transition into the pre-sales team at Workday. So this was probably September, October, having conversations with them, realizing that it was going to take a little bit longer. And in April of 2019, April or May, I coincidentally got cold DM'd by a recruiter from a company called Automation Anywhere looking for a sales engineer. This was like purely coincidence, super lucky. I had never heard of Automation Anywhere. I did some research on them. They're a robotic process automation company. Workday Ventures actually was backing them at the time when I was looking at them, and I was like, okay, Workday kind of gave their thumbs of approval. Their product looks interesting. I'll take a look. And then by June of 19, I was starting my SE role. So I guess from when I found out to when I actually started, around 9 months, which is pretty fast in comparison to what I've like talked to some other friends about. And I think I just got really lucky and was in the somehow in the right time, right place. And LinkedIn has been helping my SE career for as long as I've been here.
Yeah, I have your LinkedIn open, and you're a top sales engineering voice, so that's pretty cool. Um,
Yeah, I have
you've
some
been like
interesting
an
thoughts
SE.
around that badge actually, and I have
Go
been
go ahead.
meaning to like talk about it a little bit. Uh, I'm like that's it's a cool badge, but it's funny to think about that like LinkedIn is almost like building out these prizes for creators to try and achieve. And for a while, was like, okay, I want to go and add content to all of their AI generated like questionnaires that all that information I was like would read it and I was like, what is this? This is like total trash. And then I got it and I was like, okay, now are they going to be using my work to do something else? And so that badge is cool. It's like validation, but it's almost it feels kind of fake that like LinkedIn just built this new feature to add a badge. So I'm like plus and minus on what the actual value of having that badge is. But at the same time, I'm like, it's pretty cool to see that on my profile.
Yeah, I mean, like so I also have that badge, and I never worked for it. Right? It just every once in a while something pops up, say, "Hey, add your thoughts here," and I add it. But the way they formulate the question is just weird. So, because sales engineering, everything depends on context, and some of the questions are, "Hey, how do you convince the customer to do something that they never thought about?" It's like, well, that's a 5 day course. You're asking me to write
Yeah,
in 3 lines and make it sound bitey and clickbaity and all that. So I agree with that assessment. I don't know. The only reason I think it's helpful for me personally is if someone sees me for the first time, they say that I have a
hmm,
top badge, and maybe that builds some form of trust. I'm not convinced that it does,
yeah,
but just in case that one person, I don't think it hurts. I think I've built trust through helping people. So, and you're doing the same.
exactly.
Like, I think there's more value in the articles that you've written on LinkedIn than on that whatever thoughts you added in the like in that small box that they're asking for. But that's Interesting, and I agree with you. Okay, uh, going back to your LinkedIn, let's forget about the badge. Congratulations on the badge. Anyways, uh,
Thank you.
you've had a few SE roles since June 2019, if I see here properly.
Hmm.
Like, what's the thought process that would make you move? Like, for some people, stay with one company forever. So, what was the criteria that convinced you it's time for you to move?
Some of it was my choice, some of it was not my choice. The first move I made, I wanted to go to an even smaller company. I always wanted to work at like an actual startup. So Automation Anywhere was around 1,000, 1,200 people when I had joined. The SE team in the US was 60 pre-COVID, and then I experienced my first layoff. I wasn't affected, luckily, but we went down to like 12, which was very significant. And then I realized that it was such a large team, I didn't really know everyone, and it didn't give me like that startup atmosphere that I was looking for. And that's what drove me to move to a company called Tonkean, where I joined as, I think, the 50th or the 51st employee. And we were Series B at the time. And I helped scale that up to around 100 folks. The SC team was everything from pre-sales to post-sales to support to implementation, everything that the customer touched the application, and as we call them solutions architect and SA was involved in. And then I helped split that out into three different teams of pre-sales, post-sales, and support, and then really helped drive that pre-sales team. Unfortunately, after a year there, they did a layoff round, and I was affected by that, which is what drove me to my next role at Vic AI as a partner SC. I had never done a partner SC role. I had worked with the chief growth officer previously at another company, and she was looking for an SC for her partnership team. And it lined up timing wise. And so I joined them. They were also another Series B company, this time in the AP automation space, creating an AI accountant. And that's when I learned what partner SCs do. And the easiest way that I was able to differentiate between a partner SC and a direct SC is direct SCs are like players on one team where they are, focused on one goal, and they're playing the court, working with the AEs day in and day out. A partner SC is more like a coach who is coaching multiple teams, each team being that partner. Now the tough part is those players on the teams that you're coaching as a partner SC are playing for multiple teams. And so you have to convince them that your product is going to be, one, easy to understand, two, fits within their business, and three, they are going to actually be able to sell it and make money. And so I think being a partner SC, you have one extra layer of complexity on top of a direct SC, just because you have one extra uh, company player that you're working with on top of. And then from Vic, came over to Home Run, again, was laid off. And when I was looking for my next role, I actually cold DM Brian, the CRO, because I saw a lot of his content. I've been following him. We've been engaging with each other on LinkedIn back and forth. And I just straight up asked him, I was like, hey, are you guys looking for any SEs? And he was like, not at the moment, but let's chat. One conversation turned to two. Him and his co-founder liked that I had a development background. I did some part-time work for them for around 6, 7 months, and then last week or 2 weeks ago, joined full-time on their team. And now I'm here as a senior solutions consultant, building the next generation of pre-sales technology.
That's so technically you didn't cold DM them, right? You developed a relationship and then you warm DM them in a way. I mean, you didn't have like you never talked to them before, but you've engaged with them on LinkedIn.
Correct. Yeah, there was like comments on posts. He commented on my
Okay.
stuff. So yeah, I guess it wasn't cold, but I had never talked to him one on one.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I understand that. I think that's the thing that SEs need to get better at is engaging with people, so that if they ever cold DM them, it's not as cold as just out of the blue,
Hmm.
which is what SDRs and some salespeople have to do. Uh, I, you were at so you were at Automations Anywhere for almost 2 years, and then you went to Tonkin, where it sounded like you kind of were responsible for the SE team. Uh, it took me a year and a half to figure out that I suck at my job as an SE, and then a couple of years to get better at it. How did you have the confidence to go and actually be kind of a lead within that organization and then help them build their processes and split the teams and all that? Was there fear involved, or did you just jump in and you knew it's going to work out somehow?
I did not know it was going to work out. I just I just jumped in and tried, to be honest. I luckily it was I wasn't doing it alone. I had other really strong SC teammates who had experience in the past, different experience that we combined together in order to formalize these processes. I think the learnings that I had from Automation Anywhere, which had a more established pre-sales team, I used to help orient me with what we should be doing at Tonkin. And I kind of just jumped in. We tried something, it didn't work. We figured out why and then tweaked it and tried again. Um, and I think just I wasn't worried about trying to succeed the first time. I was just trying to do something. There's a saying that I recently heard is, you're not going to fall behind if you take action, but if you just sit there and do nothing, you will fall behind. Even if that action is a misstep, you're taking a step at least, and you're going to be able to course correct and adjust. And at least as long as you're moving, you're going to improve.
There's a saying that I like to say. I probably stole it from someone. I just don't know who it is, which kind of matches what you're saying. Any decision is better than no decision. Like,
Mhm.
pick something and go with it. Like, if you're wondering, should I become an SE or should I go into development? Whatever you pick, just pick it and go after it. Because if you keep asking that question, which one am I gonna do? You're gonna do neither. So I love that you said that. And being like I worked at Alcatel-Lucent, which is now Nokia. Alcatel-Lucent was like 15,000 people or more. I worked for Spirent, which is a small company, had 1,500 people, and I currently work for a company called Keysight, which is also 15,000 people. I don't get to do anything other than sales and sales engineering. Right? At a startup, it, did you have the freedom to do more things with more departments that are around you?
Oh, 100%. I think because I went to Tonkin, I was able to start to develop my personal brand on LinkedIn, and I was encouraged to start posting and working with the marketing team. That's when I got my start in making memes and just posting content. Originally, it started with memes associated to the product and like the automation space, and then gradually morphed into what it is now, which is mainly focused on sales engineering and how to and just the different challenges that we overcome as SEs. And I wouldn't think I would have been able to do that at a larger company because I just wouldn't have had that encouragement. It was one day I think I was sitting at the airport at like 6 a.m. waiting for a flight, and I created some memes and I posted it on our Slack channel and got positive reinforcement and encouragement from our marketing side saying, "Oh, you should actually post them." And so that kicked off my I'll call it like the LinkedIn career, the influencer career. And then also working with product and the development team, day in and day out, every week we were talking to them saying, "Hey, this is what this is what's working with clients. This is what's not working. This is what they're asking about." Working with product marketing to get out demos, doing webinars, going over to trade shows. I think it really, when you're in a smaller company and you need to move, you just move a lot more quickly, and there is less, I guess, less bodies in between each of the teams because there's just less bodies in the company in general.
Yeah, I remember trying to I talked to my manager. So SEs at my company used to report to a sales director, and I was trying to talk to him. It's like, hey, how about we create this video? Everyone's asking about this thing. How about we create it and then post it on YouTube on our company YouTube or whatever? And he's like, oh yeah, let's do that. Let me talk to some people and figure out how to do that. After 5 weeks, we figured out we can't do that because we're gonna have to create everything, put in the logos, do the edits properly, send it to someone in corporate who has to look it over, redo the edits the way they see fit, not the way I planned it because you know marketing, and then they may or may not approve it in the end. So basically, they told me that you can put in the work, but we may or may not care about what you've done. So
Hmm.
it's I like the fact that you actually had a Slack channel where you can share stuff with the entire company. We don't we don't have somewhere to share with 15,000 people. Not that anybody would want to see my memes that I would create. Okay, um, but we do work with a lot of. You mentioned like product management. It is difficult to still work with product management at a large company. But let me ask you this: are the customers that you're working with, are they like small, medium business, commercial, enterprise, and how would you define them, anyways? Because each company defines the, these segments differently.
Yeah, so currently I'm working with companies of all sizes. I'm working with a company that has one SE, and he supports 10 to 15 AEs, AMs, CSMs, because he's supports the whole life cycle of the customer. And then I have customers who have over 100 SEs, Fortune 500 company that is worldwide, and I guess you would consider that an enterprise customer. Um, and both sides find similar value with Home Run just because of the way that it's designed. Because the SE process, whether you are a solo SE or a 100-person team SE, is relatively similar in the sense of we have some, I'll put it in quotes, some standards that can be applied across every SE organization. There are some best practices of how we should be demoing, how we should be doing discovery, how we should be running POCs, and Home Run has been able to capture that and put it in a way that makes it really easy to navigate. So I get a blessing to be working with both large and small organizations. Now the difference between the two is those smaller organizations can move a lot more quickly. Those deal cycles are a lot more quick versus the large organization. Sometimes you start with one person and then you're going to multi-thread across the business, and then you're going to start earning trust one call at a time, one piece of content at a time, and eventually 9, 12, 15 months down the line, that deal will close. But then usually by that time you have a solid project, a solid business case. They've most likely gone through a small pilot, and it becomes really sticky. And then you start seeing them start to flourish, them start to have information that they can leverage and bring to their CRO, bring to the table of forecast calls. And then it's really exciting to empower those SC teams to bring in very valuable data, and show exactly why and explicitly why SCs are so instrumental in the sales process.
That usually also means that the deals are much bigger uh, when it goes through all that
Hmm.
cycle. Otherwise, I personally would not go through it as a seller.
Yeah,
If 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 it's a 5K deal, I wouldn't go through months of talk.
absolutely.
Whereas if it's $1 million deal, it's like, hey, yeah, I'll go through 6 months.
Hmm.
Maybe not 6 months, but you get the point. The reason I was asking is uh, I work with mostly enterprise companies, but even when I work with enterprise companies, they're one of a million. So working with product management sometimes gets difficult because if we need a feature, there's a whole process of creating a business plan and all that. And if if I have the only customer, even if it's a huge customer that will use the system, then it might not go anywhere. But it sounds like, how do you work with your product management team?
Yeah, so
Well, I guess
with
home run,
every
your product management team is one person. You
yeah,
just call them up.
yeah. I mean, toss it in the Slack channel for now. But with the larger organizations that I've worked with, we had like a more formal process of uh, at Vic we created something called Prex, product requests, and it was a type of Jira asset, and we would
Right.
manually create these things and write what prospect is associated to it. Is this a blocker or a nice to have or a future request? And I think within Home Run itself, actually, we have the capability of capturing those feature requests, tying them a particular opportunity. And at the feature request level, you can see all the opportunities that are associated to it. I can see, okay, look, this feature request has $1 million worth of deals tied to it, and 500,000 of them are blockers. We're not going to close those deals without this feature. And then the other 500,000 is a future request, meaning that if we don't deliver this in 6 months, that's going to potentially cause one of our clients to risk of churn. And so having it built into the Home Run product actually makes it easier for us at Home Run to have those feature requests and then be able to associate that with specific dollar values and specific clients that might have similar needs, but maybe client A has one unique version of this particular feature and client B has a slightly different one. So we need to add some customization in the features and whatnot. But I think it's really important that you have some type of process in order to capture this information. And then once you have the information to capture, then that can help product team organize, which ones they're going to put on a roadmap and why. And if you have a hard dollar value saying there's $1 million worth of business tied up in this one feature, and there's 250K in another feature, it's going to be a lot easier for product to prioritize.
So here's a problem that I run into, and I don't know if anyone else runs into it. So I wanted to hear your thoughts. I can call a feature something that somebody else can call it something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we open a ticket, I have a feature that says something, and somebody else has a feature that says something else, but they're similar. And as sellers, we don't consolidate those ideas. And in theory, PM product management should be doing that, but sometimes they miss it as well. Have you run into this problem? And if you have you found a way to overcome it? And maybe we can discuss that.
Yeah, I think this is it's a very common problem amongst a lot of companies that I've spoken with and even companies that I've been at. And the way that I've personally been able to overcome this is we, as the SC team, is kind of that bridge between sales and product in the sense that we would have our weekly meetings and talk about, oh, were there any interesting feature requests as one of the topics that would come up. We would almost pull up our this was at Vic AI, we would pull up our prec board and do some cleaning, and that put a little bit more burden on the SE team, but it also allowed us to organize, be like, oh, that actually sounds like the one I wrote, and oh, Curtis, you have one that's similar to me. Let's fuse them and get rid of one and clean it up. And so there is some manual work, and I think when you're communicating as an SE organization, now this is we're 4 SEs, so it's a little bit different than if you have like 400 SEs. And I think when you are scaling up, you run into different problems, and you have to approach it differently. And so it comes back to just like communicating with the team and trying to search what's available first, and if you can't find it, then make it. And in my eyes, if I had a large SE organization, I would try to standardize how these feature requests are written in order for me to then more easily be able to digest it as someone who's looking for other feature requests if they exist or not. And then there's some type of standardizations that allow me to more easily search for something that exists in hopes that we'll avoid that duplicity, but we can't be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like my company has a lot of SEs, and not only that, my company's been around for a while, and it's gone through acquisitions and stuff. And every time you acquire someone, their process is different. And I'm telling you this because
Mm-hmm.
you work at Home Run, maybe you can do something about it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but also, like, let's say this year we're using Jira. Next year we move to Salesforce, right? Now everybody has to adapt and move things, and the processes that were working once just stop working because we've changed so many things. Uh, so even if you say like, hey, let's do this process today, it might work. In 5 months, it may stop working altogether. And it would be nice to have one way to formalize everything that's pre-sales, and not because other than Home Run and a few other software, there's nothing for pre-sales. It's all sales or support, and you're kind of Frankenstein monstering something to
Yep.
work in between. So just hey, here's a feature request for you for the
Oh,
future.
absolutely.
Um,
I think one point to
mm,
that is if you were using a product like Home Run, that would be your process. And if I need to change the backend solution that it's connecting to, whether that's Jira or Salesforce, that's an integration change. The process didn't change on the front end for the SEs. They do what they're still doing. Where that data is going is now what you're swapping out. So you don't change the experience or the process. You may be changing where the data is flowing towards. And that's what we've seen in the past where I'm acquiring a company, my company's on Jira, the other company's on AHA, and for the SEs, if you're using Home Run, you don't need to change your process. You would just point it to Jira or point it to AHA, and the experience stays the same.
all right, cool. Okay, so I mean, there's a lot to talk about, especially when it comes to processes and all that. But one of the topics that we're discussing is SEs kind of touch so many different aspects of the company, right? We already talked about marketing, we talked about product management. We know that we talk to sales, right? Is there is there a specific group that SEs touch often but are rarely mentioned? One or two?
Yeah, I think as an SE, I was constantly in contact with support, especially when you're at a larger organization. Those support engineers have saved my ass in so many times because they just are deeply embedded in the system. They also know where things are breaking as you're getting constant product updates. So I, befriended one of the support engineers and was talking to them constantly, and I just want to give a shout out to everyone in support because oftentimes when I'm running into a problem on a demo or something changed and I didn't realize it just because we're updating our instance over and over again, the support team has always been there to save me. And so I think that's one team that if you are an SE, go make friends with your support engineers because they know some secrets that they figure it out, and I don't know how they figure that out, but they are wizards. So that's one that I think we often forget
I,
about.
I, I'm smiling from ear to ear because I like a month ago or so I put a post all about like, hey, be nice to your support because like the same way they've saved your behind, they've saved my behind more often than they've caused issues. Like here's the general rule: support doesn't get involved in demos. If there's a demo problem,
Mm-hmm.
you talk to PM, you talk to whoever set up the environment. You don't talk to support. If you have a good relationship with support, they will jump on and fix it for you, and you get to go do your job and look like you know what you're doing, thanks to other people. So okay, that's yeah, I love that you said that. Anyone else that you'd want to tell people to make friends with?
Your marketing team, your product marketing team, sales, of course, your product manager. I think you honestly just need like a relationship with at least like one person from each team across the business, or just know someone in each of those, just that you can continue to talk to because each of those teams are working on something different, but also in the same direction as the whole company. And just having your finger on the pulse allows you to. It's like, oh, I overheard this. Can you give me some more information on it? Uh, and yeah, like I worked a lot with our CSMs, and anytime I had, hey, has any customer done XYZ use case? I'm on a call with a prospect who asked this, you know, random question that I've never heard before. Let me go talk to my CSM who's working with our clients. How's it going? Have you heard this use case before? I think just being able to have one or two friends across the business and different organizations will allow you to be able to tap into information essentially really quickly, and you have that relationship where it's a two-way street. It's like, oh, hey, I heard something interesting, product manager. Let me tell you. Or, oh, I ran into this weird bug. Support team, have you guys seen this before? And you're passing information back and forth. So it's hard to specifically pick one because I think there's value in having one or two
Yeah.
people that you know across the
Well,
business.
It's so it's a thought just popped in my head. Like we talk about, hey, you have to be make friends with support, with engineering, with product. I the thought that just popped in my head, like again, I'm an enterprise level sales. I work with customers here in Ottawa. My customers have customers in China and India and UK and Europe, and we never think about like, hey, maybe I should talk to my colleagues, my SE counterparts in China, in Europe, right? And I don't know why it just dawned on me, but like that's why I love these conversations because you guys get me to think about things that I haven't thought about. So that's thank you for that. No, all right. What when you I mean I know you wrote an article about this specific topic, right? I have it open on LinkedIn right now. What made you want to write this topic or this article? If you know what the article that I'm or the post that I'm talking about. Sales engineering is the heart of every organization. I think that's how it starts. What made you want to start that or
Yeah.
write it?
Uh, I think one night I had uh, so I have a whiteboard in my office here to the left of me, and one evening, right before bed, I had this thought of an image of the concentric circles that is in that post. And I first drew that out where, SEs were kind of in the middle, and you had customers, sales, product management, engineering. You're all touching it, and it just came from the fact of that's how I felt what was going on in my day to day. I was in between being I like to think of SEs as translators across the business, of being able to explain to sales what's going on in engineering, why that particular feature is actually, from an engineering perspective, very difficult to do, and why you shouldn't be saying that because it's not going to be possible. And then from there, I started with the image, and then I slowly expanded across the image because I felt that I actually shared it with my manager, and he was like, "Yeah, that's pretty accurate. You should continue to run with it." And I continued to run with it, and I dug deeper about how the relationship between each of those circles came to be, and then I posted it, not really realizing it would resonate so much with the SC community, and it really did, and I was genuinely surprised, and it was more for myself, like something I like to tell other folks who have asked me, what do you do to, like, what inspires you to write content. It's honestly stuff that I find interesting, and if I were to give information back to my younger self who was starting out the career, this is the information that would be really valuable. And so I try to write for myself and do things that are interesting, and if it's interesting to others, that's a bonus.
So is there a topic that you uh, that's the top of mind right now for you that you're writing a post about?
Yeah, I actually thought of something last night regarding carrot and stick adoption, and how, as we're selling software, if we want to keep our customer, it's really important for adoption to occur. And currently, the two ways of people thinking about adoption is either you give an incentive to adopt a new process, or you give a punishment for not. But there's a third one, and I will leave it as a cliffhanger of what that third one is, because that's going to be part of the post.
Oof,
But this
don't do
this
that
was
to me.
my thoughts last night.
Uh, okay. Uh, w- w- I really want to know when the post is going to be out. Let me know when the post is out so I can take a look and uh, share it. Okay, Samir, we're about to jump into the not so fire round, but before we get there, was there a question you were hoping I was going to ask you, which I did not?
um, no, there wasn't a particular question. I really liked where this conversation flowed towards. Honestly, wasn't sure what I was getting myself into, and I was just gonna jump into the water and just swim with my knowledge. And so this has been a beautiful conversation.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that. Like I said, I tell everyone who asks me what's it going to be like. I'm like, it's a conversation between friends. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. The not so fire round. Same four questions I ask almost every guest. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Starting with question number one is, What do you love about sales engineering?
I really like the dynamisty of the role. I think that since you are sitting in between a lot of the organizations within the company, if you wanted to, you can go and do something in a different organization to help. This is a lot easier when you're at a smaller company, but I think it's still possible when you're at a larger one. You know, say I'm interested in building videos and getting my face out there. I can work with the product marketing team to do that. Or I'm interested in writing blogs. I can write something and it'll actually be published. Recently I was interested in getting back and doing some coding because I missed the development life, and I spoke with my dev team, and there was like a small project that they allowed me to work on that impacted our customers. And so I think as an SE, you're in a unique position to go and pursue almost maybe like side quests for within different organizations. And I think that it's a lot easier because you already have those relationships and you already have some background knowledge that gives you that overlap with another business unit within the organization that you can go and explore some of your curiosities.
Have you noticed that since you've been out of dev and you get to pick and choose what you want to develop, you have more fun with it? Or is it still boring?
Yeah, definitely. No, it's definitely a lot more fun. I think the last thing I had built was a small script for a particular customer to go and update some of their information within the product, and it was exhilarating once I kicked off the script. I was sitting with our CTO, on our Zoom call. We reviewed my script. We tested it on our environment, and then all of a sudden we let it fly. And it's like I am changing, 15,000 records on this client's production server, and why is my palm sweating and my heart rate up? It's just really exciting. And I didn't feel that way ever when I was a
I
developer.
think I think the biggest disservice companies do to their developers is not show them the impact of their work. Right? Uh, they're so far removed that they can't tell what they're doing, if it's useful or not.
Hmm.
All right, let's jump into question number 2, which is, uh, what do you consider is your superpower?
I think it's the being able to connect with people. I have a lot of random interests, and because of those random interests, whether it's dancing or riding motorcycles or taking care of plants, there's an overlap with something that I'm interested in and the person who I'm talking to. And so because of that overlap, it allows me to connect with them and really have interesting conversations just because there I have a little bit of knowledge in a lot of things. And then particular things I have a deep set of knowledge where I've just gone in the deep end and to learn a lot. So I think that's probably one of my superpowers is being able to just have a conversation with anyone just because I will be able to find that common ground pretty quickly.
Nice. All right. Um, so question number 3. Um, is there a book or resource you would recommend for folks who want to learn more about sales engineering?
For SEs in general, Um, nothing's coming to mind, but I think if you are going to be an SE at a smaller organization, especially if you're going to be like that first SE or the first five SEs, there's a book called Selling the Wheel, which I really like when you're going into the startup world, and it's pretty much about it's like an allegory about how when the wheel was first created back in the pyramid days, how they were able to sell it. How did they convince people that using a wheel to push rocks was better than just dragging rocks on the ground? And it really talks about when you are trying to push a new technology, people don't understand the value of it because they don't trust or want to go and change. And that story is really easy to read. I read it probably like once a year just to remind myself of the different stages of a product life cycle where it becomes your innovators are only getting it, and then it becomes mainstream, and then you have your stragglers. And so I always recommend that for folks who are going to a startup where maybe it hasn't gotten product market fit yet, or it just got product market fit and you're still trying to take this uphill battle to convince people that it's actually going to impact their lives in a positive manner.
Okay, selling the wheel.
Selling
Nice.
the wheel.
All right, the last question of the not so fire round is there a habit you're working on today to improve in your personal or professional life?
Yeah, I think one of the things is I've been really focused on body mastery, is what I like to call it, in the sense of I want to have a lot of control physically of my body. And when you can control your body physically, you're also being able to control your body mentally. And the ways I'm doing that is training Krav Maga, learning how to fight, and then also doing some calisthenics work, learning how to move my body in ways that require a lot of strength and then also a lot of focus. And that physical toughness and that mental toughness feed into each other. And oftentimes when you're on back-to-back calls for 4 or 5 hours straight, you need to have that mental toughness and that grit to allow yourself to push through and know that, okay, hey, I might be at the end of my wits, but I've been here before, whether it's physically or mentally, and I've pushed myself past it, and I've still succeeded and survived.
Nice. Okay. Samir, we're done with our chat. I mean, at least for now. Uh, if people want to connect with you, have their own chat with you, where can they do that?
LinkedIn's probably the best spot. Samir Kausar. I have a little duck next to my name. That's how you'll know. And you can ask me what the duck
Okay.
means, and I'd love to share.
Nice. All right, Samir, I'll leave a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes as well. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'm looking forward to many more. And that's the end of the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really enjoyed the conversation. Well, the one thing I loved, I loved a lot of things, but one thing that's resonated with me is that Samir was an SE at a startup with a year and a half experience, where he had to, with the help of other colleagues, build the processes and all that. And he didn't know if he was doing it right, and still he tried things, figured out if it works or it doesn't, and then tried something else. And I think that's true for the rest of for everything in life. You try something, doesn't work, try something else, tweak it, move on. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. If you did, leave a rating and review, leave a comment, and I will see you on the next one. With that, I'm signing off.